Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of the Coreco Couch. Now, who do I have on the couch with me this week? Well, I'm delighted to have Stephanie Fitzgerald, who is director of the Young People programs at the Money charity, which are a fantastic charity, which I have experienced, which I'll come on to that. And they're leading on their work with young people across the UK, including money workshops, student money manual, and teacher resource packs. And Stephanie, it says here that you're passionate about helping people to gain more confidence in managing their money and to enjoy the control and freedom it brings, especially young people. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's lovely to have you here. So, before I get on to my experience of being in a school and watching one of your programs, which was just it was quite a profound experience, actually. Apart from the fact I did feel a bit like naughty schoolboy I was waiting to be told off, but that says more about my school life. Do you want to talk a little bit about your role and your background and how you got involved with the Money charity? Where did it come from?
Sure, yeah. So, we're the UK's financial capability charity. So, we work with adults and young people to help them to build the skills and the knowledge and the attitudes and behaviours to manage their money well and ultimately achieve, financial well-being. And I look after the young people side of that, which is the biggest part of what we do. So, we reach over 30,000 young people a year via our interactive money workshops that we do all over the country to children from the ages of 7 all the way up to 19. And so I look after the operational side of that, the content side, manage relationships with partners as well, and also try and influence, policymakers in the media too. And how I got here, well, way back, I knew that I wanted to work in education in some way. And I got interested in the charity sector. And I actually started at the Money charity right at the beginning of my career as an education officer, so delivering the workshops myself regularly and sort of the day-to-day running of them. And then I lived in New Zealand for a few years as well, where I worked for the Commission for Financial Capability. And I set up behaviour change financial education programs for adults, which was great working with the Defence Force and some big retail companies as well. Teaching adults how to manage their money, and then came back here into my current role. So my whole career has been in financial education, and I just get more passionate about it every day, to be honest.
So where's that passion come from? What is it? Was there a moment, or was it?
I think it's the fact, and I occasionally still deliver workshops now, and I always start off with this. It's just the fact that it's something that genuinely affects everyone's life. It doesn't matter who you are, how much money you have, what sort of job you do. It's one of actually the few things young people can learn that will definitely affect their life. And it's still not really talked about very much. So that's a bit frustrating, and that makes me even more passionate about it.
Yeah. And the Money charity's work. So it was really interesting being in a school and just seeing the environment nowadays, which is very different to probably when I went to school back in the 1600s or something like that. And it was quite fast moving. It was people going in, going out as an open door policy. Kids were differently engaged, or they seemed to. This is what was really interesting. You seemed to have a whole variety of kids, some who were definitely paying attention, some who didn't seem to be paying attention, but they were paying attention, and a whole different, some whose behaviour wasn't quite great, but even they seemed really engaged with it. And what it was is, I guess you took over a maths lesson, and you produced pay slips for everyone, and it was all around what is a pay slip, how do you know what you're earning, why are some people earning this and some people earning that, what is tax, and all of that kind of thing. And it went through to how you actually budget, which was brilliant. So I just thought it was amazing.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. And you saw it is a challenging environment,
Yeah.
and our fantastic consultants who deliver our workshop have to have so many skills. They have to have the knowledge behind them, obviously, the
Mm.
financial knowledge, but also the ability to do some behavior management, as you said, and to make it engaging, because if it's not engaging, then they're not listening. And you know those sorts of challenges that you saw in the fast-paced environment in the school are why organizations like us need to exist, really, because
Mm.
a kind of easy answer what sounds like an easy answer is we'll just train teachers in how to deliver financial
Mm.
education. But the reality is teachers have so much going on.
Yeah,
Schools are
absolutely.
crazy places. Teachers
Yeah.
are just normal people who don't necessarily know much about money
Yeah.
themselves. And so this it's really important that new, fresh faces who are confident and excited by money can
Yeah.
come in and kind of get that message
Yeah.
across.
I loved it because at one point, one of the kids went, hold on, hold on. So you're telling me I earn £75,000 a year, but I'm only getting 43,000. So I'm not really earning that, am I?
In that
It was
workshop
just
in
such a
particular,
light bulb
yeah,
moment
yeah,
that was so brilliant.
yeah, and that's one of the challenges we've got to balance as well,
Yeah.
because we don't really want the key message of all our workshops to be it's all doom and gloom. There's no point in
No,
trying.
it
The
wasn't
government's
at
going
all.
to take,
No,
and
no,
so
no, it
and so
wasn't.
we
Yeah.
try and make
Yeah.
it like positive and empowering.
And that was interesting what you did in terms of actually why there's tax and what that tax pays for. So they were actually understanding, okay, I'm losing this money, but that's paying for that and that's paying for that, which
Yeah.
was brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. We actually last year we wrote that workshop. It's a new workshop, and a lot of the thinking behind it was because young people often have a very good understanding of how much certain things
Mm.
cost. Like one of the most common answers about what do you want to save for in the future, what's a goal, is, a very specific type of sports car that usually a young man wants, and he knows exactly how much it costs, and
Yeah.
and it's usually, sort of over 100 grand. But they have no idea how much, an average salary is, or what a salary they might expect it might
Mm.
be. So that's why we introduced that new workshop where they all get different pay slips for different jobs, and
Mm.
they can see how it varies.
Mm.
And even that, right at the beginning can create quite a lot of debate and shock and horror, like that firefighter's earning less than that person who sits in an office all day,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, which, because talking about money is still quite a taboo, this is brand new knowledge for
Mm.
these young people. We don't talk about how much we earn.
Yeah.
It feels uncomfortable. And then you think, well, actually, how are young people supposed to know that then? How are they supposed to understand how actually maybe, sadly, unrealistic it might be to buy that sports car? And how are they supposed to make career decisions as well if they don't know what what sort of
Mm.
salaries they can expect from certain jobs? So yeah, that's a fun one. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was interesting where it all got to in the finale when they all had to, in their groups, budget themselves, so do a week's budget planner. And the
Mm.
first group were really keen. They finished quickly. They're like, finish, it's really good. And by the way, every single one of them went for the most expensive phone. That was just a given. And yeah, the leader was like, yeah, this is really good. It's really good. Where are you going to live? What? Well, you haven't put anything down for accommodation. Oh, no. So it's just really interesting. Then they took it back and they had to work out in a different way. But it was brilliant. And it struck me that actually I'd be interested to know how many of them then went home and actually brought that conversation into their family life, which would be brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the hope. And we do know actually from our evaluation that our workshops improve the financial capability of the teachers who are sitting there,
Yeah.
and their confidence to deliver financial education themselves moving forward as well. And it's very rare that there's a workshop where the teacher at the end doesn't say, "Oh my goodness, I learned so much," and ask us something about their tax they pay or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that activity, one of the most common things that come out of that is that the young people say, oh my goodness, I appreciate my parents so much more now. It's like that light bulb moment. It's actually quite hard, and things add up.
Yeah.
And it might sound like, that income of however much, £40,000 or something, is a lot of money, but it's actually really not when you
Mm.
have all of these outgoings you need to manage.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. Yeah, I'd love to come into my daughter's school, actually, teach her about it.
Sure,
Although
we can arrange
she's
that.
quite good, but she's very good at spending.
Yeah. Well, we always say it's okay to have a spending habit as long as you have a saving habit too. Got to be realistic.
So so I read somewhere that actually people or people in general develop their relationship with money at a very young age. Was it about 7 or
Yeah.
8?
Yeah, so there's some research that suggests that our spending habits are formed by the age of 7. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And so that sounds very young because a lot of 7-year-olds aren't even engaging with money. But how I explain it is I've got a 3 and a 5-year-old, and I can already see what kind of spenders they're going to be. They got their Easter eggs at Easter. My little girl eats a tiny little bit, puts the rest away for later. My little boy eats it all and then gets really angry and jealous and tries to take, his sister's. And so those sorts of,
Yeah, that sounds standard. Yeah.
delayed gratification,
Yeah.
wanting things now, being able to weigh, that kind of
Yeah.
thing, those habits do start very early.
And that's very interesting, isn't it? Because my two, I got a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old, and they're very different in their money habits. And it's interesting why siblings would be so different. And I'm very different from my brother. My brother always looked after money, saved it, and I was always what I had, I spent. So why is that different between, like, you think as parents you're not doing anything different, but are we subconsciously?
Yeah, I think maybe, and also just personality,
Yeah.
One of the workshops we do with young people is called My Money Personality, which is all about
Oh,
kind of
wow.
working that out, doing a quiz, thinking about what kind of a money personality you have and what things trigger your spending. Like, do you comfort spend? Are you particularly influenced by adverts and that kind of thing? And if you have an understanding of an awareness of that, you're going to be better at managing your money.
Yeah. So you're going in and delivering education in schools. Do you think that the government should be doing more around financial education, or is it actually better that we leave it to and don't put extra burden as teachers, like you sort of intimated before? And
I
what
think
could they be doing more of?
Yeah, so definitely more needs to be done. So less than half, 48% of young people say that they've received a meaningful financial education.
Mm.
That includes at home as well as at school. So actually for at school, it's around 30% say that they've received it. So it's not happening, but it is on the curriculum, and it's been on the curriculum for over 10 years now, on the secondary curriculum, that is. So something isn't working, and actually that figure hasn't changed as
Mm.
well. So it was the same before it was on the curriculum. So and part of that is because financial education doesn't have a home. So it sits in maths and citizenship,
Yeah.
and often is actually
Yeah.
delivered in PSHE, which is personal
Yeah.
social health education. So if a subject doesn't have a home, it's going to get forgotten about. You're
Yeah.
not going to get a teacher who's passionate about it or trained in it. But also it's not Ofsted inspected, it's not examined. So there's kind of no reason to actually teach it. It just gets forgotten about. So it definitely needs more prominence in the curriculum. And we would argue that it needs to be added into maths GCSE exams, more maths questions that are
Yeah,
related
some
to
more
finance.
real life applications of maths. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Which will then increase engagement with maths
Yeah.
as well, because that's the common argument for young people, isn't it? What's
Yeah.
the point in this algebra? It's not relevant to me. Also, it's not in the curriculum for primary age young people. So we would argue it definitely needs to be,
Yeah.
as we talked about with that stat, you just really can't start too young. We start really young with lots of other subjects. Why not financial education? So that's a definite kind of easy win, really. But also, we need to think about the mechanism. How are we going to do this? Because teachers are just normal people and they're not necessarily financially capable themselves. So that's why we exist, because we can bring external experts into the classroom who feel comfortable talking about this. Maybe in the long term, training teachers to deliver it if it's sitting in the right place in the curriculum and, we can have a mechanism to teach enough of them. But in the short term, bringing expert into the classroom is the best answer, I think. So we need funding for that because obviously it costs money. And unlike some other subjects, for example, primary PE, there's a big pot of millions of pounds that schools can draw on to pay external providers to deliver it, whereas there's absolutely zero money for the delivery of financial education, even though everyone
That
thinks it's
just
a good
seems
idea.
so crazy, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
really does.
Yeah.
And actually, it's interesting you said in primary, very young, because actually, as you said that, it's really weird what sort of things pop into your head. I had a real vivid memory of my daughter. I always had to buy things from her shop. She'd always set up a shop and it's always that. And that's such a great time to actually just to take that a little bit further and explore, how that works, where you're getting the money from, what you're buying, how much is it, all of those types of things.
Yeah, exactly. I think a common kind of misconception is that people think, oh, learning about money, that's too complicated and boring for young people.
No,
But
yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that kind of thing, and recognizing coins and talking about saving, shopping, just involving young people in kind of the shopping and little spending decisions
Yeah.
that we make as adults on a day-to-day basis, can really make a difference in the long
Yeah.
term.
And also it's about the parents as well, isn't it? And the relationship. And actually a previous guest I had was talking about that, about her relationship with money is very much because of her parents and what she saw growing up with them. So as parents, we also need that education, and we need to be aware that they're little sponges, aren't they? And so they're learning about money through our relationship with money as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Often as parents, we want to and think we're protecting our children by not talking to them about money. We don't want them to worry about it. It shouldn't be something they should have to worry about, maybe like I did as a child, or, that kind of thing. But the reality is, like you say, they pick these things up. If you're anxious about money, they'll probably know that, they'll have heard it, that,
Yeah.
they'll pick it up. So it is better, although sometimes it's hard, it's much better to have open conversations with them, talk about the fact that, oh, we're cutting back a bit on our food shop this week because it's getting towards the end of the month. That kind of thing's actually going to create less anxiety than if you just ignore the whole topic altogether and they don't really understand what's going on.
Because they will notice, but they won't understand.
Yeah,
And if
exactly.
they understand, it's really interesting. That is really, really interesting. So, so when you're doing all this, are there any common misconceptions or worries that come up in those
Yes.
workshops?
So with the young people, I think the biggest worry is just they're scared of messing it up. They see a lot in the media about as well how challenging things are for them now. It's going to be really hard for them to buy a home ever. The fact that the cost of living crisis, hard to get jobs. I think it can feel quite doom and gloom, and so. They're just really scared of having that responsibility, often because, as we've just discussed, they maybe haven't been given very much. Um, independence with money and things. They're just so scared of messing it up and doing the wrong thing. And again, because they haven't been talked through it all as much as would be ideal, it's this sort of great unknown. All these decisions I'm going to have to make, this huge financial services landscape and all these products. They kind of know they're there, but because they don't know very much about them, it's just scary. So I think that's the most sort of common worry, is not actually very specific, but just, oh, I'm gonna do it all wrong and mess it all up, and have no money, and it'll be a disaster. And misconceptions, as I talked about, probably just understanding how much things actually cost and having a sort of concept of what they all add up to and what might be possible for them. Yeah. And interestingly, I don't know if it came up in the workshop you came to, but one of the most common questions we get is about what happens when people die. They're quite
No,
interested
it
in
didn't
death.
actually. Yeah,
That comes
no,
up a lot, like
yeah,
what happens to a mortgage, all that kind of
yeah.
thing. So we always have to make sure we know the answers to those sorts of questions because they seem to be
That's a
interested in
pretty
that.
profound question.
Yeah,
What happens when I die?
yeah, yeah,
Well, that's a whole other subject.
yeah.
Yeah, I just find it fascinating that the whole, and I love the fact that you're engaging with people early because it just helps to reduce that stress, doesn't it? Financial education generally can reduce stress. It shouldn't be seen as I'm going to know more and there's more to be worried about. Actually, it's the exact opposite, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And our message is all about, being in control. Simple things like doing a budget help you to feel in control. It's not about necessarily how much money you have. It's about, knowing where what you've got is
Mm,
going, and therefore feeling less stressed as a result. Um, yeah, and the other thing is that young people really want to know, and I'm sure you
mm,
saw this in the workshop. They have lots of questions. They really
yeah,
appreciate this opportunity to talk
yeah,
about it, and they get how important it is.
yeah.
And I think often people assume that they wouldn't be that interested, they'd find it dry, but money's a really interesting topic.
Mm,
They all know they want it.
mm. It's how you discuss it, isn't it? It's how you relate to it. And within this session, there were 4 or 5 activities that they had to do, which were not boring activities. They were interesting activities, and all of them, even the ones who you thought are not interested or might have a couple of behavioural issues, they all got involved,
Yeah.
which was amazing,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. So how we've written the workshops is that they're journey based. So we tried to kind of put them into real life situations,
Mm,
as close as possible, and decisions that they might make in the future. So, for example, other workshops we have are moving out and making decisions one, where we look at, okay, so they come in the room, we tell them you've got a new job in a new town or city, you need to move, ready to start your new job. Let's decide whether renting or getting a mortgage and buying is right for you. Look at the pros and cons of that. Now we've got a like dummy brochure of different housing options with pictures and things. So that's the sort of bringing it to
yeah.
life, making it
Yeah,
exciting,
brilliant.
aspirational. Choose which one you want. And in that conversation, talk obviously about how mortgages work and all of that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And then we move on to insurance. So you've got somewhere to live now. We learn about insurance through the example of contents insurance. They have to make decisions, and often it gets a bit animated in that bit because in groups they have to decide what to do, and
Yeah.
then we throw on them. Your house has got flooded, and then there's sort of like, I told you we should have got the insurance. What are we going to do now? And then
That's
we move
brilliant.
on to, oh, you haven't got any money for furniture. What are you going to do? Are you going to decide to save up for it, or are you going to borrow money for it? And we look at borrowing money and how all that
Mm,
works in that context. So we try and make it really relevant and practical in that kind of way. And another example, actually, that one of my favorite workshops is our scams and fraud one, where they all come in the room and we say, you've got a new job, you work in the fraud department in a bank, so you're going to get some text messages and calls coming up on the screen from your customers,
love
and
that.
you need
Yeah.
to, decide, is it a scam? Is it fraud? What is it? Which they get really into as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see them getting into that. And I was going to ask you actually how you bring in quite complex or perceived complex things like mortgages, for
Mhm.
example. We do financial education seminars. We work with companies, some big companies in terms of going in and giving financial education talks, lunch and learns, seminars, etc., around how to get on the property ladder, how to manage your money, how to remortgage, how to do a buy to let, all that kind of stuff. And actually, it's quite interesting journey we've been on. When we started that, we assumed a level of knowledge because these were people in their, you know, 20 plus in good jobs, etc.
Mm.
But actually, that knowledge was not there. So we had to start. So our first slide now is, what is a mortgage? How
Mm.
does it work? and it's really interesting. So I guess that's the benefit of introducing these complex topics a
Mhm.
lot earlier.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, in a few years, if we get better at financial education, the people who you're reaching as adults will have a bit of a better idea. Um, but yeah, I think when writing the content, it's almost like we have to forget everything we already know about the topic
Mm,
and start from scratch.
mm,
And one of the most difficult things about writing the content is that balance between making it simple enough, but not oversimplifying it so
yeah,
you're giving the wrong
yeah.
message, because nothing ever is simple as it ideally would be. But yeah, we use, as I mentioned, we use sort of real life scenarios to get them engaged, first of all, like with the sort of brochure of different
Yeah.
houses to choose
Mm,
from. They're excited about their house. Now they're interested to hear, how can I pay for it?
mm.
And then we use things like diagrams. So, like for mortgages, we use a diagram of just a simple outline of a house, and then we show the sort of 20% mortgage. 20% of the house is coloured in. So this is sort of how much you've paid off now, and then we have another slide on the screen that shows in a few years' time it's a bit more and a
Yeah,
bit more, and then eventually you've paid it off. So yeah, imagery, not too much text, not too much talking helps.
yeah. How can others work with you? What's your message to people who are watching who are thinking this is a really good idea? How do I help? How do I get involved? Because I've got to say, but I mean, we got a lot out of it personally, and it's great to give something back.
Good, yeah. Well, we're always looking for new partners. We work with a range of different types of organisations who fund our workshops, but we also partner in lots of different ways. Like we can do consultancy work, we can write content for organisations.
Mm,
So at the moment, we've just this morning actually, I was training some staff volunteers at one of our corporate partners, who we've written content for them, their own workshops that they're going to go out and deliver in their local communities. And we can also help partners sort of embed financial capability and financial education into their products and their customer journeys and all that kind of thing. And the other thing is just, you know, spread the word about the importance of financial education. Use your platforms and your
mm,
relationships with your clients and things to um, help people to think, actually, how have I spoken to my children about money?
mm.
Should I badger my school about my child's school about whether they've delivered it, and just spreading the
Yeah,
word in that sort of smaller way.
yeah. That's an interesting way of looking at it, actually.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's definitely something I should do. Is badger my kids' school about it
Yeah.
and
So
see what they're doing.
the government curriculum review they're doing at the moment, they published an interim report recently. And when parents and children were surveyed, sort of 14, 15-year-olds, one of the questions they were asked was, what subject think do you think should be taught more? And the most common answer was money.
Mm.
So we know that there's the demand there, the need, people can see the importance, but it's not translating to reality now. So yeah, maybe if
Mm.
more of us go to our kids' schools and
Yeah,
ask for it, that will
100%.
help.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And what's been the feedback actually from the teachers of the schools?
Yeah, so they, as I said, the first thing they normally say is that they learned so much
Yeah, yeah.
and they need to go away and look into their pension or whatever it might be. And then, yeah, the other thing is how engaged the young people are, and how much they're talking about it afterwards.
Mm,
These topics are actually really meaty and good for debate. And I
yeah,
think often that's underestimated. So we'll often get feedback from teachers about how, days later the kids are still talking about, where your tax goes and how unfair it is, how much you get taxed, or
yeah.
what kind of house they want eventually, or that they're saving up for something now, which is always really, really
That's
nice to hear.
brilliant. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
So I guess you've imparted a lot of advice. What would you say is the one thing you wish you'd have known
Oh,
about
good
money?
question.
So let's go back in time, 14, 15.
I think I just wish I was good at saving. I saved to go traveling. When it was a specific thing that I
Mm,
wanted, I was good at it. But I wish I could tell my past self to just constantly be saving, even if it's a tiny bit, for a general kind of emergency fund
mm,
that would look a lot bigger than it does
Yeah.
now if I do that. Especially, the thing I think really I want to go back and say to myself is having children and having a mortgage and all the rest is expensive. I think you grow up assuming the more you earn, the more spare income you're going to have, the older you get. But that day never comes,
That's really interesting, isn't it?
It hasn't come yet for me anyway, with my
No,
young
it hasn't
children.
come for me either. My kids are bleeding me dry.
I don't want to hear about how it gets worse.
Oh, no, it's fine. It doesn't get any worse. No, it's really interesting. So what's the best piece of advice you've ever had?
I think I heard someone mention the concept of a money date, which I like. I just love. So set yourself, whether it's just you on your own or you or your partner, set yourself a regular money date, because we all know how important this stuff is, managing your money. But it's so easy when you're busy to put it off, and prioritize almost everything else above it. So if you set yourself a regular money date, once a fortnight, once a month or something, where you and yourself or whoever you manage your money with sit down and review things, have a look at your budget, have a look at, your insurance or whatever it is that needs renewing at that time, that can actually make a huge difference and make you a lot more kind of proactive rather than just letting your spending and the money manage itself kind of thing.
That's really interesting.
I practice that sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't always practice what I preach.
I know. Yeah, I'm guilty of that. Manage the money. Don't let the money manage you.
Yeah, and have a glass of wine or something while you're doing it. Make it.
I'll
make
definitely
it
have
fun
a glass of wine.
Yeah,
definitely. So, where can people find you and the Money Charity? How do they get in touch if they're interested?
So just get in touch via our website, themoneycharity.org.uk, and we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on socials as well, LinkedIn and Facebook and all of that too.
Thank you so much.
Thank
it goes
you.
quickly, these things.
Yeah.
It's just flown past. As I say, generally, I can't recommend it highly enough. It was such a great experience. It was so rewarding, and we'll definitely do some more stuff with you in the future. And I definitely urge you to look up the Money Charity and get in touch, get involved. So thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It was fun.
Good. Good. We try and be fun. Thank you very much for watching or listening or however you're consuming the Coreco Couch. Tune in next time to see who is going to be next on the Coreco Couch.